These days, keeping your security, IT, or research team close when more of us than ever work remotely is a challenge. How do you keep team bonds strong when your main path of interaction is your tiny little colleagues trapped in little squares on a computer monitor? Susan Morrow has been managing a remote team for almost 2 decades, and she dispenses wisdom on coordinating schedules in multiple time zones, making sure everyone's moving toward the same goal, while helping team members of all work styles to do and feel their best. Look up from your monitor to prevent eye fatigue, but look back here when you're done, because it's another cyberwork hack. Today's guest is Infosec Resources author, past cyberwork guest, writer, researcher, speaker, and identity expert Susan Morrow of Evoco Identity. Thanks to COVID, changing technologies, and employee dictates, remote teams are likely going to be on the menu for good, but Susan has had a remote team since most of us were still milling awkwardly around the microwave at lunchtime. So today we are going to talk about some of her best advice for keeping a team of remote workers tight. Thank you for joining me, Susan.
Hi. I've actually been working remotely and running remote teams for like 17 years.
17 years, okay.
I know.
Yeah, so where are your team members located and what are their respective roles?
Yeah, so I mean, they're all over the UK, but I've also worked in multinational remote teams as well, and also multiple consortia remote teams. Yeah. So it isn't easy.
Yeah.
And it sometimes goes wrong.
Yeah.
But the thing that I found works best is to keep the teams small and tight.
Okay.
And ones, atomize teams.
Yes.
Try to avoid the 40 people on a Zoom call situation.
Right.
Keep teams tight. Atomize them, keep them in sort of general areas where everybody's actually working on the same like general part of a project. Or you're bringing a guest speaker who is like sort of working on that particular suddenly working on that particular part of the project, but then might pop out again, so they might not there'll be an in and out sort of thing.
So if you have to work with 40 employees on a team, you're saying sort of break them down into sort of smaller sub teams so that you're not trying to sort of like herd a circus.
Yeah, it would be like herding cats. It really would. Yeah. And even when I've been in multi sort of like consortia teams, again, because we tend to use agile in that situation. So you're doing daily 5-minute calls, and weekly kind of like more sort of like more in-depth calls, but still the teams were tight, and all working towards a particular aspect of a particular project. The project manager obviously plays a big part in making sure that these calls go well. I mean, I'm working on a sort of multi-remote in different country sort of teams at the minute, and the only reason it works so well is because you've got a project manager who completely controls the call, and who afterwards sends out a list of what decisions were made on the call, who's going to do what. It's very tight, it's very structured. Yeah. Of course, you need to also, like, the trouble is with like working in a remote team is I've gone through years, especially with COVID now. I used to have regular meetups.
Right.
Where we'd come together in one place and like various things.
Throw things around, yeah.
But because COVID, we had several years where we didn't meet at all in face. To be honest, it hasn't made any difference.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah, because you already have the muscles in place there. So a lot of us were learning this for the first time, and
I mean, you do miss people face to face.
Of course. Oh, absolutely. No, it's almost more like a family reunion or something. But so these are some of the things that have worked for you. Have you seen other things that didn't work as well in terms of like trying to keep a team together? Were there, was there kind of like the fad of the week where it's like, well, if we all do this one thing, then it'll keep the morale up.
Yeah. Pointless meetings.
Yes, right.
Pointless meetings. Where a manager will come in to micromanage a team and say, we have to have a meeting at such and such a time, every Friday, and they end up going by the wayside. Yeah. And they don't really achieve anything.
No, they just want to make sure you're not wearing a bathrobe or something all day long.
Also, some people just don't take to it, honestly.
Oh, remote work, you mean?
Yeah, they just don't take. Younger people in particular, they find it, in my experience, right? And this might not be true for obviously everybody, but I've had a lot of problems where younger people they kind of take it because they want that social, connection.
Yes, right.
But it's not fair on them, because also oldies have our lives in place.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I have enough friends.
But I remember my first job where I worked in a lab. I laughed more than I worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
We played. It was very inefficient in some ways when I think about it. We played together. We went out together.
Yes.
Right. We were together all the time. It was great fun. Right. And you're never going to replace that with remote working.
Yeah. Oh, I want to, I don't want to just leave that in the past. Do you have any suggestions for young people who are increasingly seeing like only remote options here? Like, how else do you sort of keep morale up? Because I feel like in March, April 2020, there were a lot of virtual happy hours, and they didn't last long because it's still not the same thing. But
the Zoom disco's fine, but it's not the same. You do, I think, if you can, do have regular in-face meetups. You don't have to do it every week,
right?
You don't have to, but every so often have a meetup, even if you one of my friends at a big company, she has remote meetings with people all over the world. Yeah. And I know that they have regular, not every month perhaps, but every sort of quarter. She'll fly over to the UK. She'll meet up with her members of her little team. They'll also bring they'll have a sort of company-wide thing where they'll do it as a company-wide thing. So again, they'll atomize even in person, but then they'll expand out into like other teams. They'll have team, meetings. They'll have wider team meetings. They'll have company meetings.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They'll have jollies as well. But she works for a very big company and she manages to do it by, like doing that. But she does mean that she has to travel now quite a bit.
Now, I want to wrap up, hopefully with good advice here for team leaders who are maybe worrying that their team is drifting away from them, either from a productivity standpoint or just from a morale standpoint, but they're not necessarily getting feedback from team members and they don't want to just kind of crack the whip to shake things up. Do you have any tips for diagnosing or attempting to solve team drift like this?
Well, in development, it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly when people are not, uploading to GitHub, for example.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they stop making repository entries, or when you're up against a deadline and they don't meet it and they would normally, it's pretty obvious in development,
right?
With stuff like that, and that's always been my indicator. Yeah. Making amends after that happens is much harder. How to bring them back into the fold, that's much harder, actually.
Yeah.
It can be a real struggle. You have to see them face to face. You have to talk them face to face.
Yep.
You can't do it. You can try, but you're never going to get the same interaction, the same level of body language.
Yep.
People. I'm sure that people don't reveal as much online as they would privately in person. For example, there could be anything going on in their life, that you don't know about, and you need to get to the bottom of it. You just need to find out what's going on. Yeah. They might just hate working for your company. And then
right. Yes. But you need to know that too, though. Yeah.
You need to know. And quite honestly, I think a private conversation is still needed in this day and age, one way or another.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So this is all excellent advice. I hope team leaders are taking some notes here. Listeners who want to get more insights from Susan Morrow can find her articles over at resources.infosecinstitute.com. Listen to her past episodes of Cyberwork. But Susan, where else can listeners find you?
They can find me on evocoidentity.com.
Okay.
That's the company I work for.
Yep.
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. And also you can find me, if you just do a general search, you can find me. I tend to write quite a lot for various organizations.
Well, Susan Morrow, thank you for all of your great advice today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
And thank you for watching this episode. If you got something useful out of it, please share it with a colleague and maybe subscribe to our podcast feed and YouTube page while you're at it. You can just type in Cyberwork on YouTube or in your podcast feed and you're on your way. And there's plenty more of them to come, so we will see you next time. Bye for now. Hey, if you're worried about choosing the right cybersecurity career, click here to see the 12 most in-demand cybersecurity roles. I asked experts working in the field how to get hired and how to do the work of these security roles so you can choose your study with confidence. I'll see you there.